This is one of those movies where I get why people are loving it and I get where the hype is coming from, but I actually don't even think the hype really prepares you for what this movie actually is. So let's dig into Sinners. I was so hyped for this movie when we saw that trailer. I couldn't have guessed where this movie was going to go because from the trailer alone, it just seems like a vampire movie set in like a cool setting.
I thought the movie was really good. I thought the setting was good, but it was also a terrible setting because it was like Jim Crow. The only issue I had at first was what I thought was the ending, which wasn't really the ending, which we'll probably talk about more, but the movie was fantastic. Yeah, I definitely want to see it again, though.
A great movie, yeah. Great cinematography, great acting, great storytelling. I mean, if you want a dusty gripe, it's not entirely original.
Oh,
I mean, if I said, hey, I'm going to make a movie about two brothers who were on a crime spree and are trying to get away, and they go into a bar and one of them dies to vampires at the end, you'd say, oh, yeah, I know that movie. Quentin Tarantino made that movie quite some time ago.
I've heard this.
Robert Rodriguez.
I've heard this narrative.
Yeah.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
So very Dusk Till Dawn vibes. So in that aspect, it was a little bit predictable. But beyond that, amazing. Like, again, the music was great. The cinematography, the acting, everything was amazing. This was a great story, but yeah, loved it.
So I was saying, I didn't expect this movie to be what it actually became. On its face, it's like, oh, well, this is very similar to From Dusk Till Dawn. And if I had just watched the trailer and that was it, I would be like, yeah, okay, this is a pretty straightforward vampire movie. But it's not even a vampire movie. He uses the vampire as a vehicle to tell a story about, like, it's so multi-layered. It is really why it blew me away. Like, on its face, it's a story about culture and your culture being taken from you and the culture of America. And when you talk about the culture of America, American culture is literally Black culture. Like, it is rooted in Black culture. Culture and tradition, assimilation and erasure, legacy. Like, it's the history of the United States. Gentrification, like literally all of it. And so you mentioned, the time period, Jim Crow, 1930s South, on a plantation where, now I don't know how many people know about this, because I know I certainly didn't learn it in school. I know about it because, I just know about it. Over the years, I've like learned and educated myself on American history, but I never learned this. I don't even know what you would call it. In the title track for the movie Sinners, there's a line, 40 acres and a mule. And that like derives from the fact that the former slaves were promised like land after they were free. And they were promised land and resources and stuff for economic self-sufficiency, but it actually wasn't that. I think this is called Sherman's Field Order or something like that. And it was broken and rescinded by the government later on. So they were basically what had happened was these former slaves were still enslaved. They were still working on the same plantation and they were earning money that they could only spend within the confines of this plantation, and they couldn't really go anywhere else. So
like worker towns.
Yeah, and that's where
your money's only good here.
Exactly. And so essentially you still have people that are enslaved. And that's where this movie takes,
for all intents and purposes.
Right.
It's essentially indentured servitude because you can't spend the money elsewhere. You have to spend it there.
And that's where this movie takes place. Smoke and Stack are two guys. You mentioned they're like crime, like they're, on a crime spree, but that's really not super accurate. Like you get the sense that, I mean, they're obviously criminals, but you get the sense that everything that they've done in their lives have been to A, protect one another, and B, to get out of this life of servitude and subjugation and all and hate and all this stuff that they've been subjected to. You get the sense that's actually why they went to fight in World War I. Like the movie doesn't really actually talk a lot about their time in the war, other than that they served. I got the sense that they went as a means to escape.
Yeah, I mean, that's still happening today. Like, people join the military when they don't have any other way to get a job, essentially.
Yeah,
but there are two types of people who join the military. There are people who Their family is they have the lineage, or there are people who have nothing else and need
Exactly.
it, and that's why politicians. It's a joke. Politicians send the poor to war. They don't send their own kids. They send
exactly.
not your kids in this thing.
And
Poor kids.
that's the system. They've created a system of essentially what is still slavery. Like the working class is essentially still. It's not the same, but it's in a sense still it's wage slavery because you're working to survive.
100%.
And then when
everything's taxed.
Yeah, and then
if you don't pay the taxes, you go to jail. We're indentured servants to the U.S. government.
And then when you have no recourse in life, you join the military so you could catch bullets for, Johnny Arkansas or whoever the fuck. And so everything in this movie was like brilliantly crafted to like tell this story of American history, but about this shown through this group of people that are just doing what they can to like, I guess, get by and try to like as best as they can escape it. So Smoke and Stack, they leave World War I, they go work for the mob in Chicago for Al Capone, and you find out at one point in the movie that they've actually stolen from him all this alcohol they have to open the juke joint. Turns out the building that they buy, they're buying it from like the Grand Duke or whatever the fuck they call themselves of the KKK, and like
Imperial Dragon.
Yeah,
I don't know, I've seen different names for it. To your point about how everything was like crafted in such a way, it was almost like showing how in the system sometimes you're set up for failure no matter what options you take. Because like you go through all this, you go to war, you work for a gangster, you escape that, you try to go to straight life, which is starting their business, and then you're still set to fail that way because they were going to come back and kill them anyway. So it's like,
Would you call this a musical?
Musical adjacent. There's definitely a lot
because I came out considering it a musical, and Christina and I had a conversation about it, and she was like, "No, not really." Well, a musical is a movie in which songs by the characters are interwoven into the narrative and sometimes accompanied by dancing, and that 100% was the case in this film. So
that is what
I guess
happened.
So, but normally musical songs are like annoying and like you want to skip them, whereas they were pretty good in this case.
Yeah,
or maybe that's just how I see it, but. I think music
so it
is
doesn't
like,
make it feel like a musical, but it's still it's still the act of, because it's done well. That's why I like this might be one of the best musicals I've ever seen. Christina's like, it's not really a musical. I'm like, it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely agree with you.
I can see that.
I think I would say musical adjacent. It certainly leans heavily on the music, but music is such a, again, like I said, a foundational element of the movie, and specifically the blues. And the blues started here in the South in the 1930s, and of course, again, American culture,
literally like based on like like slave anthems. Like
a lot of again, American culture, and a lot of the things that we hold dear or seem or think are like identifiers of America are Black culture, and blues music is one of those. And if you don't, without blues music, you don't have rock and roll. You don't have 90% of the music that you have today, including hip hop and all this stuff. It all started from blues and jazz.
Yep.
And
it's true.
And blues and jazz started in the fields. Like that. This is how these guys, these people, they used art to express themselves and express their pain and their suffering and stuff, and turn it into a positive way. That's what art is. And then that's what the movie is. That's the story it's telling about how the powerful will come along and fucking take a thing and claim it as their own for profit and commoditize it, like Black music or Black culture and stuff like that. Like, and then they'll not only do that, they'll tell you that it's for your benefit. Like, no, we're gonna take.
I get that.
Yeah,
you're talking about Remmick and when he was.
Well, Remmick represents that. Yeah, the vampirism in this movie represents like cultural assimilation in a sense. They
kind of got a love-hate relationship with him just because of the circumstances. Like, of course, he's trying to erase everything as far as like the spirituality and all this stuff that they stand for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were already doomed from the people coming. They were going to come back anyway. So it's like he's evil, but it's like the lesser of two evils, which is kind of like another common theme of American history.
The movie opens with a voiceover, and she's explaining in the beginning of the movie how some people throughout history possessed a talent so pure and so like preternatural that they could pierce the veil of not just the living and the dead, but like the veil of time and space, essentially. It's framed around music and around the blues in this movie, but it's really a stand-in for all art, and like how and really what it means is how art transcends everything. Sammy just wants to play the blues. During this opening night, he plays a blues number that he wrote for his dad, and it's the scene of the movie that everybody's talking about. At one point, we see the veil between time and space, living and dead, literally breaks down during his performance because it's so powerful, and the scene is done actually so well. We start to see dancers from African tribes of the past. We start to see...
They're just creeping in, like, just so naturally,
There's a guy who's dressed in, like, future clothing, but he's playing like Jimi Hendrix. It's representative of how art does transcend everything. It transcends culture. It transcends time. It transcends space. It transcends your tribe. And so I know the movie is very much a narrative about, like, Black history in America. But I think even deeper than that, and I don't want to like co-opt the movie's message or anything, but I think even deeper than that, it's about how we're all human beings at the end of the day. And like, while we all have tribes, we're really bigger than that. And like, we should aspire to transcend our tribe, whatever that tribe may be. Therein lies the issue where it becomes a vampire film, because Sammy's playing so good and he pierces that veil that Remmick, a vampire, is tuned into it,
feels
and
that power.
He feels that power and he wants it for himself.
I kind of agree with you, but I don't necessarily fully agree with your premise on it's about art in general. I think it's more specifically a focus on music and how music is the ultimate form of enlightenment.
I agree with you, yeah.
Rather than just art in general, because you keep saying like art.
Well,
and I feel like the focus is music, and that the rhythm and the vibrations and the acoustics and everything is what opens up other worlds, and that's why music is so important, and more important than say something like a picture or a painting behind me or something like that. Like music is like the message.
I agree with you. Writing and
agree.
I think writing and music probably share a similar power.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Shakespeare is still remembered because of the way that he wrote things, and there's a reason for that. But,
I think music is
lyricist as well, but that's but that's music because there's a rhythm to it.
Yeah, and I think what you're trying to say, and I agree with you, is that music is like the purest form of art, because you're dancing and sweating and you're throwing yourself around and you're being expressive, and like it takes over you. Music, like it's very,
it can
very
be
powerful.
less structured too.
You are the art in motion. There's no representation of it. Yes, it's you doing it.
So in comes Remmick and a couple of freshly turned vampires who also happen to be clan members. Remmick is Irish, and he's very purposefully Irish. And this is where
Choctaw.
a lot of... What'd you say? Choctaw, yeah.
They were Choctaw, yeah.
Yeah, that was, They teased it, they volleyed it at the beginning because they were talking about the different types of music and what every culture called it. They referenced the Choctaw, then the Choctaw showed up chasing him, trying to do the right thing. It alludes to maybe they'll show up at the end and give you a little exposition about what they're doing or some wrap up.
No.
And they just leave that thread loose, which is a little bit frustrating, but
yeah.
No, I love that. They were like, "Oh, you don't want my help? Okay, fuck that. We're out of here. It's time to go home." And they never show up again because they mind their own business. Like, I love that.
This place we're out. Yeah.
I think that was perfect.
Another group of people that were that had to assimilate. They had no choice. You know what I mean? In the scope of American culture. And that's why I thought it was brilliant that Remmick was Irish. I've seen people talking about it, but not in the way that I think is correct. Like, they're just like, oh, well, the Irish lost their own homeland and had to assimilate to American culture. But that's not quite really what happened. I mean, it did happen that way. And Remmick, he's singing songs from like the 1300s or something in terms of Irish history. So he's very old. So he talks about how he experienced, like, how people came and stole his language and they took his culture away. He says he wants to create equality. Like, he genuinely believes in equality, but it's not really equality. That's the thing. And that's what he represents, is white people being like, no. We want you to be equal with us so we could just take over all your shit. We're equal. But you're not equal because you're fucking deleting me from history.
You lose your being and everything that makes you.
Right.
And Yeah, just join the machine.
Exactly. And but Remmick, I think, goes a little bit deeper than that. There's a book called How the Irish Became White. I never read it myself, but I'm familiar with it. But it talks about how when Irish people came to the United States with Italians and Irish people were not even considered white at the time. They were
I've heard of this. Yeah.
They were also marginalized. Obviously, probably not as bad as Black people were or other minority groups at the time, but they were also marginalized. You know,
they were indentured servants. They were a step above slaves.
Yeah, living in tenements
Right.
and working in factories and all this stuff. The book talks about how the way Irish people really became accepted in the United States was to just assimilate to the culture of white hate, really. That's why I thought Remmick was like a really interesting choice, because the Irish have like a very storied history in the US as well. And obviously what he represents is like, hey man, let me get your culture. Because he's not out for blood like normal vampires. He wants Sammy's thoughts and memories and talents, because Sammy is connected to musicians of the past and future because he's so talented. That's what Remmick wants. He wants that for himself. I thought the vampire part of the movie was really awesome. Like, it's nothing special. It's just them, you know, picking people off one by one, trying to get inside. But I thought it was really effective.
Because it was like you said, it wasn't really about vampires. Like, that was just like a tertiary plot point. Like,
it was just a way to,
but it was good enough for like, you know.
And really the bulk of this movie, the strength of this movie was in the whole first half of, I love the whole movie. I'm just saying, like, I was already won over before the vampire stuff even happened. Like, I was locked in.
The world building was like next level.
The
like
relationships.
Smoke and Stacks, even their like 3-line history was already like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yeah.
All these themes, these multi-layered themes that we were just talking about, are condensed into one singular thing, which is freedom. That's the narrative of the movie. Freedom from your oppressors, whether they be your parents or your family traditions or your tribal traditions or any of this stuff. Because Sammy breaks away from the chains of like, oh, my dad's he's called Preacher Boy. He's like, I don't want this life. I don't like, this is not for me. I want to play blues. This is my passion. That's the whole movie right there, of just like, you know, people trying to break away from the chains of whatever those chains. It doesn't have to be cultural oppression. It could be literally anything. I just thought this was such a brilliant movie. Again, completely blew me away. I don't know if you guys found it as powerful as I did. It's been a really long time since I've seen a movie that was this good. Again, I was very surprised. I thought it was just going to be like, oh, cool, Ryan Coogler like vampire movie with Michael B. Jordan. That seems sick. But it was like so much more. It's like barely a vampire movie. Like it's not that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I said that vampire is like a tertiary plot. Like, it's not even.
And everything about this movie is so finely and meticulously crafted, down to the title, Sinners. These people in this juke joint are all considered sinners because of their lifestyle or their worldview.
They're just doing normal shit.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I every single second of this movie I loved. I don't have a single thing to say bad about it. Not a single thing I would change about it. Just an all-around brilliant movie. And again, like, if you know, the movie industry, these executives, they're like, oh, how do we be successful? It's like, just make original shit that's good. Like, you know, there's no magic to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no cheat code. You can't just copy and hope it works out. You have to put some soul into it, which goes back to Sammy and his art.
I don't really know what else to say about it, but it was way better than I ever thought it could have been. I was completely blown away by it. It's easily one of my favorite movies I think I've ever seen. I think it might be one of the best movies ever made, I'm being honest. I don't know, like, if you guys agree with that. Not that you have to, but I think it was that good. Like, it was perfect in my eyes. Can't wait to watch it again. It's doing gangbusters on the internet. It's certified fresh both on the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and the audience score, with a 97% and a 96%. On IMDb, it's got an 8.1, which is very, very high. I don't agree with this rating. This is a perfect 10 for me, baby. 10 out of 10.
Easy 10, yeah.
Okay. Does it get you perfect, Dusty?
No, it gets an 8.5 from me. Doesn't
Damn.
get a perfect.
Can't even get the extra 0.5%. Damn.
No.
Right.
No, there's a couple things that I just story wise would have been more interesting to me. But yeah,
Okay.
great movie. Can't wait to see it again. Highly recommend
I
it.
can't
You
wait.
know, all that good stuff. But sure,
One of the
couple complaints.
one of the few times, folks, where a movie not only lives up to the hype but exceeds the hype.
Mm-hmm.
So, give us more of this shit, Hollywood. If you're struggling, just make a good movie. That's it.